All right, these are the answers to the review for Pythagorean distance midpoint quiz. For the first one, you identify that C is this longest side here, and so x squared plus 8 squared equals 15 squared. Square those out, subtract, we get x squared equals 161. Take the square root of both sides, and we get this value. Same thing for number 2, only the longest side this time is over this 28 here. So x squared plus 15 squared equals 28 squared. Square this out, subtract 225 from both sides, and we get x squared equals to 559, and then take the square root of that, and we get this here. Right? So number 3, 56 here is our longest side. So x squared plus 12 squared equals 56 squared. We're gonna go ahead and do that. That'll be 144 equals 56 squared, which is 3136. Subtract 144, and we get x squared equal to 2992. Take the square root, and x equals 54.7. On this one, a little different. The thing is there, so that C is right there. So we end up with x squared plus x squared equals 32 squared. All right, so now x squared plus x squared, that's 2x squared, and 32 squared is 1024. Then if you divide by 2, we end up with x squared equal to 512. Then take the square root of 512, and x equals 22.63. That's our answer there. So number 5, we say we have a Little League diamond. Bases are 60 feet apart from each other, and we want to know how long would it be if a third baseman standing at third base threw across to the first base. We want to know what that distance is. So again, we have a little right triangle here. X would be that C value, so 60 squared plus 60 squared equals x squared. So 3600 plus 3600 equals x squared. 7200 equals x squared. Take the square root of 7200, and we get a distance of 84.85 feet. Then number 6, Susan runs 15 yards. So she runs for 15 yards, turns 90 degrees, and then runs another 35 yards. And we want to know if someone was just running diagonal right from the start to the finish, how far would they run? So that would be the C value there. So 15 squared plus 35 squared equals x squared. So 225 plus 1225 equals x squared. So add that up, we get 1450 as our x squared. Take the square root of 1450, and we get 38.08. So that's how far they would have to go. All right, then for these, we're supposed to find the distance and the midpoint. So for the distance, we're going to use our distance formula, which is the square root of x minus x squared. So 3 minus negative 7 squared plus y minus y, 10, negative 10 minus negative 4 squared. Now you can put this on a calculator, or you can do it in stages. 3 minus negative 7, that's 10. And negative 10 minus negative 4 is negative 6. All right, and so we end up with the square root of 136. And if we do that, we end up with 11.66. So that's the distance between the 2 points. Okay. As far as the midpoint goes, now we find the middle of the x's and a middle of the y's. So 3 and negative 7. If you were to count to the middle of that, you would get to negative 2. Negative 2 is 5 away from 3. It's 5 away from negative 7. And halfway between negative 10 and negative 4 is negative 7. It's 3 away from each of them. Now, if you weren't sure, you could add those together and divide by 2. So add your x values, divide by 2, and you can do the same thing for the y's. Add them up, divide by 2, and that would be your midpoint. Right. So over here, our distance again is going to be the square root of x minus x squared plus y minus y squared, okay? And so that's going to be negative 11 squared plus 14 squared. And if we do that, we end up with the square root of 317. The square root of 317 is 17.80. So that's our distance. As far as our midpoint goes, between negative 6 and 5, halfway between that would be negative 1/2. Between 3 and negative 11, halfway there would be negative 4. So that's our midpoint there. All right, and then we got this one. Connor's at a point negative 3.8 on the map of his town. Grace is at the point 5.14, and Austin is at the point 0.4. How much closer to Austin is Connor than Grace? So in other words, we want to find out how close is Connor to Austin and how close is Grace to Austin. Then we will kind of subtract those. So let's figure out Connor to Austin. We'll call that the CA, Connor to Austin. That's going to be the square root of negative 3 minus 0, so negative 3 squared, and then 8 minus 4, that's 4 squared. And if you do that, you get the square root of 25, which is 5. So that's the Connor-Austin distance, okay? Then we want to do Grace-Austin, okay? So Grace-Austin, that would be the square root of 5 minus 0, so 5 squared. And then 14 minus 4, that's 10 squared. So we get the square root of 125, which is 11.18. So how much closer is he than her? Well, it's 11.18 minus 5, 6.18. Whatever those units are, maybe miles, maybe blocks, whatever we're talking about. Now, it says, are the three friends standing on the vertices of a right triangle? How would we know? Well, we've got two sides. Let's find the third side. So the only side we don't have right now is the Connor-Grace side. So let's figure out what that one is. So that's the square root, negative 3 minus 5, that's negative 8 squared, plus, and then 8 minus 14, that's negative 6 squared. All right, so if you do that, you'll end up with 10 as your answer, okay? So now the question is, here are the three side lengths. Does 5 squared plus 10 squared equal 11.18 squared? And keep in mind that we rounded that, so it's just got to be pretty close, right? Well, if we do this, we get 125 equals 125. So the Pythagorean theorem works here. So we would say yes, Pythagorean theorem works. And if it hadn't, then we would say no. They might be sides of a triangle, but that's not a right triangle.